1972, pro stock drag racing was completely dominated by massive Hemi-powered Mopar cars. Factory teams with unlimited budgets. Million-dollar muscle machines. Then, out of nowhere, one man pulls up to the line in Pomona, driving a tiny, cheap Chevrolet Vega. An economy car that nobody took seriously. But he doesn't just race, he destroys everyone. Low 9-second passes. Win after win. Humiliating the biggest names in the sport. NHRA officials panic. Overnight, they rewrite the entire rulebook, weight breaks, chassis rules, everything, to make sure this one car can never dominate like that again. Some say they tried to bury it. Pretend it never happened. Tried to erase the legend who outsmarted them all. This is the shocking true story of Bill "Grumpy" Jenkins, the drag racer NHRA tried to erase from history. Bill Jenkins wasn't some rich kid handed a race car. He was a mechanical engineer born in 1930 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Smart, analytical, and obsessed with making things go faster. People called him Grumpy because he didn't smile much, didn't waste words, and had zero patience for nonsense. If something wasn't perfect, he'd tell you straight to your face. That attitude made him enemies, but it also made him a winner. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, Jenkins started racing Chevrolets in the gas coupe and super stock classes. He built his own engines in a small shop and named his cars Grumpy's Toy, starting with a 1955 Chevy, then a Nova, then bigger stuff. He wasn't just fast, he was clever. While other teams threw big block Hemis and money at the problem, Grumpy tuned small block Chevys to beat cars with twice the displacement. In 1967, he won super stock at the NHRA Nationals, a huge upset against the factory-backed Mopars and Fords. By 1970, NHRA launched the new pro stock class, heads-up racing with factory-looking cars but real race engines. Jenkins jumped in with a Camaro and won the very first pro stock event at the 1970 Winter Nationals. He set records, proved small block Chevys could hang with the big boys. But then the Mopar teams, guys like Sox and Martin with their Hemi Darts and Barracudas, took over in 1970 and 1971, dominating everything. Grumpy watched, learned, and started planning something nobody saw coming. He knew the old muscle car era was ending. Compact cars were the future. And he had the perfect one in mind, the Chevrolet Vega. Little did anyone know, this grumpy engineer was about to turn pro stock upside down forever. The monster, 1972 Chevrolet Vega, Grumpy's Toy 9. And that's when he unleashed the monster that changed everything. In late 1971, pro stock was a battlefield ruled by the big boys. Massive 426 Hemi-powered Mopars from teams like Sox and Martin were crushing the competition. These were factory-backed beasts with huge engines, heavy bodies, and seemingly unbeatable power. The class felt locked in, big blocks dominated, and everyone else was just fighting for scraps. But Bill Jenkins saw the writing on the wall. The muscle car era was dying. American buyers were shifting to smaller, more efficient cars. Compact models like the Chevrolet Vega were popping up everywhere, cheap, light, aerodynamic little hatchbacks that looked nothing like a race car. Grumpy didn't see a grocery getter. He saw opportunity. NHRA, trying to keep things balanced and boost competition, made a critical rule change for 1972. They introduced weight breaks based on engine type. Cars with big block Hemis and similar monsters got hit hard, stuck at around 7.25 pounds per cubic inch. But small block wedge engines? They got a sweet deal, about 6.75 to 7 pounds per cubic inch, meaning lighter minimum weights overall. A compact car with a smaller engine could run way under the weight of a Hemi Dart or Barracuda. Grumpy pounced on it like a shark smelling blood. In his Malvern, Pennsylvania shop, he built what would become Grumpy's Toy 9. A 1972 Chevrolet Vega body stuffed with genius engineering. Forget the stock weak 4-cylinder engine GM sold. This Vega got a hand-built small block Chevy. He started with a 327 block, bored at .030 over, used a small Journal 327 crankshaft with bearing spacers, longer 5.85-inch rods, and ended up with 331 cubic inches of pure fury. Dual carbs, aluminum heads, custom everything. Estimates put it at 580 to 585 horsepower by season's end. Insane for the era. But the real revolution? The chassis. This was the first true tube frame pro stocker. Chrome moly tubing hidden under the stock-looking Vega sheet metal. It kept the car looking somewhat factory legal on the outside while being a full race machine underneath. Lightweight, stiff, perfectly balanced. The Vega body itself was tiny and slippery through the air, perfect for cutting drag and launching hard. No one had ever done anything like this in pro stock. The debut came at the 1972 NHRA Winter Nationals in Pomona, California. The car was brand new, barely tested. Jenkins qualified 17th out of 32 with a sluggish 9.90-second pass. The field laughed. A Vega? Against Hemis? No chance. But Grumpy wasn't done. Between qualifying and eliminations, he and his crew tore into the suspension, tuned the chassis, dialed in the setup. Race day? Magic. The little orange Vega started dropping low 9.6-second passes at over 140 miles per hour. Consistent, brutal, flawless. Round after round, he carved through the big Mopars. In the final, he faced Don Grathier and took the win, his first victory in the improved car. The drag racing world was stunned. A cheap economy car had just beaten the Kings. That was just the beginning. The 1972 season became the Grumpy Show. He won 6 of the 8 major NHRA national events. Some sources say 6 of 7 nationals. He dominated 5 of the first 8 events overall, including regionals. Pass after pass. He once ran 250 straight shifts without missing a gear on his 4-speed manual. No drama, no excuses, just precision. By year's end, Jenkins had pocketed around $250,000 in winnings, match race money, and sponsor support. That was huge, matching what basketball legend Wilt Chamberlain earned as one of America's highest-paid athletes. Time magazine put him on the cover, the first drag racer to get mainstream national spotlight like that. Crowds went wild. Competitors fumed. Mopar teams watched their Hemi empire crumble. This wasn't just winning races. It was a paradigm shift. The Vega proved that brains and engineering could beat brute force and factory dollars. Small blocks in light cars became the new blueprint. Tube chassis? Standard now. Compact bodies? The future. Grumpy's Toy 9 didn't just win, it ended the big block era in pro stock and forced the entire class to evolve. But with great dominance came whispers. Was this too much? Too fast for safety? Too disruptive for the sport's balance? NHRA officials started looking closer. The Vega had exposed the rules loopholes, and soon they'd try to close them. Grumpy didn't care. He just kept winning. And the legend of the tiny Vega that slayed giants was born. The controversy, NRA's panic and erasure. But all that success came with a heavy price. The controversy exploded almost immediately, and the backlash was fierce. Bill Jenkins didn't just win in 1972, he shattered the status quo so completely that the entire pro stock world felt threatened. His Vega was running low 9.6s at 140 plus mph in a class where big Hemi Mopars were supposed to be untouchable. Factory teams like Chrysler, Sox and Martin, Ford, and even other Chevy camps were humiliated. Their million-dollar programs with heavy muscle cars and massive engines suddenly looked slow and outdated against a lightweight economy car built in a Pennsylvania garage. The complaints poured in fast. Rivals called it unfair. This isn't pro stock anymore, they'd say in the pits. It's a full race car disguised as a Vega. Some accused Grumpy of bending, or outright breaking, the spirit of the rules. The tube chassis hidden under the stock body? Radical. The power-to-weight ratio? Insane. Competitors whispered that the car was dangerous at those speeds in such a light package, even though Jenkins ran flawlessly without major incidents. Grumpy, being grumpy, didn't mince words. He fired back. Every modification was legal under the 1972 rules NHRA themselves had written. In fact, some old interviews suggest he influenced those rules heavily, working behind the scenes with NHRA Tech Director Jack Hart to push for lighter weights on small block wedge engines and shorter wheelbases that favored compacts like the Vega. He saw the muscle car era dying in the real world, with buyers shifting to smaller cars, and he wanted pro stock to reflect that change. But when his creation dominated, the same organization that helped open the doors suddenly wanted to slam it shut. NHRA was caught in a bind. Jenkins' wins packed the stands. Fans loved the David versus Goliath drama. But one independent racer owning the class risked alienating big sponsors and factory teams. If Mopar pulled out because their Hemis couldn't compete, or if attendance dropped because races became predictable, the sport could suffer. So they acted quickly, almost desperately. Starting right after the 1972 season and rolling into 1973 to 1974, NHRA rolled out a barrage of adjustments designed to nerf the small block/light car formula Jenkins had mastered. Weight brakes were tightened repeatedly. The sweet 6.75 pounds per cubic inch advantage for wedge small blocks got squeezed, forcing cars to carry more poundage and slowing them down. Tube chassis construction faced new restrictions, more requirements for stock-like unibody elements, making it harder to hide full race frames under production bodies. Minimum weights crept up across the board for compact cars, closing the huge gap that let the Vega run so light, around 2,317 pounds minimum at one point. Aerodynamic tweaks and body panel rules got stricter, no more ultra-thin or chemically altered panels that some accused teams of using to shave ounces. Later, even carburetor setups and other tech got scrutinized to prevent further power gains in small packages. These weren't minor tweaks. They were systemic changes to restore balance and improve safety. Officially, no one said, "Stop Jenkins." But the timing was no coincidence, right after his 6 of 8 national event sweep. Insiders in the pits knew the Vega had forced NHRA's hand. One man had exploited the loopholes so perfectly that the rulebook had to be rewritten to prevent a repeat. Grumpy kept pushing forward anyway. In 1973, he set Pro Stock's first official speed record under new rules allowing records at any national meet, 148.76 miles per hour in his Vega. In 1974, he unveiled Grumpy's Toy 11, an even wilder evolution, full tube frame, dry sump oiling, a first in Pro Stock, McPherson strut front suspension borrowed from road racing and more extreme engineering. It dominated early but faced the tightening noose of rules. The total domination of 1972 couldn't be repeated. The playing field was being leveled hard. And here's where the tried to erase part hits hardest. In NHRA's official histories, anniversary specials, and highlight reels over the decades, the 1972 Vega revolution is often minimized or skipped over. You'll see endless clips of Sox and Martin's Hemi glory days, Jungle Jim's funny car antics, or Bob Glidden's later championships. But the story of how Bill Jenkins' Vega ended the big block era, ushered in tube frames and small blocks as the new standard, and forced the class to evolve? It's mentioned briefly, if at all. Some old-timers and fans argue NHRA deliberately downplayed it to protect their image of fair competition, admitting one indie genius almost broke the system doesn't fit the narrative. Grumpy never cried conspiracy. In interviews, he was blunt. The rules changed because I beat them at their own game. He understood the politics. But the resentment was real. Rivals grumbled. Officials gave him the cold shoulder in tech lines. For years, when NHRA listed Pro Stock pioneers, Jenkins' name sometimes got buried on the list. He had exposed the fragility of the system. One clever engineer with a garage-built Vega had made the giants look ordinary. And powerful organizations don't forget when their control is challenged. The Vega didn't just win races. It sparked a war over the soul of Pro Stock, factory muscle versus pure engineering innovation. NHRA chose balance over revolution, but they couldn't erase what happened in 1972. That season lives on in garages, restored cars, and the DNA of every modern Pro Stocker that launches today. Grumpy proved legends aren't made by following rules. They're made by breaking them so hard the rules have to change. Yet even with all the rule changes and politics, Grumpy's influence refused to die. Bill Jenkins never stopped innovating. After the 1972 Vega explosion, he kept evolving his program. In 1973 and 1974 he campaigned updated versions, Grumpy's Toy X and especially the Wild Grumpy's Toy 11, a 1974 Vega with an even more extreme full-tube chassis, radical weight distribution, and power that pushed the limits of what NHRA would allow. He continued winning events, setting records, and collecting trophies, even as the rules tightened around him like a noose. By the mid-1970s, the landscape he helped create was undeniable. Pro Stock had shifted permanently. Tube frames became standard, small block engines dominated over big blocks, compact lightweight bodies replaced heavy muscle cars, and engineering precision trumped raw horsepower. Guys like Bob Glidden, who would go on to become one of the most successful Pro Stock drivers ever, openly credited Jenkins for showing the way. The class Jenkins revolutionized in 1972 is still built on the foundation he laid, whether NHRA likes to admit it or not. Grumpy eventually stepped away from full-time driving but stayed deeply involved. He built engines for other teams, consulted on chassis setups, and mentored younger racers. His shop in Malvern remained a pilgrimage site for anyone serious about drag racing tech. In 1993, NHRA finally gave him his due, induction into the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. Later came the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame and other honors. Restored versions of his famous cars, especially that iconic orange 1972 Vega, still turn heads at shows and nostalgia events today. Bill Jenkins passed away on March 29, 2012, at age 81. But his story never really ended. Every time a pro stock car launches with a tube chassis and a screaming small block, every time an underdog beats a factory giant, every time someone says rules are made to be beaten, that's Grumpy's legacy talking. He proved something timeless in drag racing. You don't need unlimited money or factory support if you have brains, determination, and the guts to call out the system when it's wrong. He was grumpy, blunt, uncompromising, and that's exactly why he won. The little Chevrolet Vega that shocked the world in 1972 didn't just win races. It changed the sport forever. It forced everyone, racers, teams, even NHRA, to adapt or get left behind. And no matter how many rulebooks they rewrote afterward, they could never erase what one man accomplished in a single unforgettable season. So the question remains, did NHRA really try to bury the legend of Grumpy Jenkins? Or was it just the price of progress in a sport that never stands still? One thing is crystal clear, Bill "Grumpy" Jenkins didn't just race, he rewrote the rules of drag racing with nothing but brains, a small shop, and a tiny orange Vega that nobody believed in. He proved that one man can take on the biggest factories, the toughest teams, and even the organization itself, and come out on top. If this story fired you up, if you're Team Grumpy, if you love the underdog who beats the system, if you believe drag racing history deserves to be told without filters, then hit that like button right now. Smash it hard. It tells YouTube this kind of raw, untold story matters. And if you're not already subscribed, do it now. Turn on the bell notification so you never miss the next hidden legend we uncover, because there are so many more racers NHRA tried to sideline, so many more stories they don't want you to hear. Before you go, check out our last video, the drag racer NHRA tried to erase, Dino Don Nicholson and the 1966 comet that scared everyone. It's the perfect companion to this one. Another genius who pushed the limits so far that NHRA had to scramble and change everything. Click the link popping up on screen right now or find it in the description below. Watch it next. You won't believe how these two stories connect. Drop a comment and tell me, who do you think got the worst treatment from NHRA rules? Grumpy Jenkins, Dino Don, or someone else entirely? Your answers fuel these videos, so don't hold back. Thanks for watching till the end. Keep burning rubber, keep questioning the system, and I'll see you in the next one. Grumpy would approve, no excuses, just wins. Peace out.